The cornfield was burning. The sky was black with smoke, and Caleb Walker dropped to his knees in the ash and gathered the unconscious child against his chest. "Stay with me, Lily. You stay with me, girl. Your mama needs you. Your mama needs you." His hands were shaking too hard to feel her pulse. If this story moves your heart, give the video a like and hit subscribe so you don't miss a single chapter. Drop a comment with the city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story has traveled. Now we go back to the very beginning, to a Nebraska road in the summer of 1879, where a barefoot girl ran into the path of a stranger's horse. The corn was taller than a man. Caleb Walker rode through it with his hat pulled low and his revolver loose in the holster. 6 hours in the saddle, no water for the last 3. He spat into the dust and tasted iron. "Quiet country," he muttered. The mare flicked an ear. "Too quiet, you reckon?" He didn't expect an answer. He'd been talking to horses for the better part of a year now, ever since he'd stopped talking to men. Then the corn moved. Not the wind. The wind had died at noon and never come back. Caleb's hand drifted to his holster. "Whoa now!" The mare stopped. The stalks shook again, closer this time, and then a small body burst onto the road, no more than 3 feet from the mare's chest. A child. A girl. Barefoot. Dress torn at the hem. Hair the color of dry corn silk, pasted to her forehead with sweat. A scratch above her eye still beating red. She threw her arms out wide. "Don't ride past!" Caleb yanked the reins. The mare shied sideways. "Easy, girl. Easy, child. You trying to get yourself killed." "Please, mister." The girl's voice cracked. "Please, mister, don't ride past. I damn near rode over you. They're coming. They're coming for my mama." Caleb glanced down the row of corn. Somewhere behind the girl, deep in the green, he heard a man laugh. The kind of laugh men make when they think nobody's listening. He looked back at the girl. "How old are you?" "10, sir. 10 years old and running through the corn alone. My mama sent me." "Your mama sent a 10-year-old. My mama can't walk no more, mister. She's burning up with fever. She told me to run to the road and find somebody. Anybody. And you're the somebody." Caleb stared down at her. "Child, my name's Lily. Lily, listen. I ain't your somebody. I'm just a man riding through. I don't know your mama. I don't know your trouble. You best go on home. They're going to take her." "Who?" "The judge." Caleb's hand stilled on the reins. "What judge?" "Judge Whitmore." Her chin trembled, but her eyes didn't leave his face. "He says my mama ain't fit. He says she's crazy. He says she can't raise me proper. But she ain't crazy, mister. She ain't. She's just sick. And he's the one who made her sick. Him and his men, with the water." "With the water?" "From the mine. Upstream. Daddy wrote it down before he died." Caleb tipped his hat back with his thumb and exhaled slow. "How long since your daddy died?" 8 months. "And it's just you and your mama on the farm?" "Yes, sir." "No uncle, no grown brother, no neighbor man?" "Nobody who'll come, sir. They're all scared of the judge." Caleb looked at the corn again. The laugh hadn't come back, but he could hear them now if he listened, hard boots crunching dry stalks, the soft jangle of a bit chain. 2 of them, maybe 3. Not close yet, but coming. "Move out of the road, girl." "No, sir. I said move out of the road." "I won't." "Lily." She lunged forward and grabbed his stirrup with both hands. "You move me yourself then. You drag me. But I ain't letting go of this saddle until you come help my mama." He could have kicked her loose. A grown man on a tired horse, a child no bigger than a sack of flour, he could have kicked her loose and ridden on and forgotten her by sundown. He'd forgotten harder things. He looked down at her small hands wrapped white-knuckled around the worn leather. "Lily." "Yes, sir." "You ever been hit by a horse?" "No, sir." "Then let go of that stirrup before this mare spooks and breaks your jaw." "I won't, sir." "God damn it, child." "You can say God damn all you want, mister. I ain't letting go." Caleb stared at the corn, stared at her, stared down the long empty road that led nowhere he wanted to go. He took his hand off the reins and rubbed the bridge of his nose. "What's your full name, girl?" "Lily Reed, sir." "Reed?" "Yes, sir." "And your mama?" "Abigail. Abigail Reed." "And the Judge Whitmore says she's unfit." "Yes, sir." "On what grounds?" "Sir." "On what grounds? What reason? What's he claim is wrong with her?" Her eyes filled up but didn't spill. "He says she's a poor widow with no man to keep her straight. He says she screams about poison that ain't there. He says her house is falling down and she can't feed me proper, so the county ought to take me and put me with a Christian family. And the judge, he wants what, the farm?" She nodded so hard her braid bounced. "The railroad's coming through, sir. Daddy said the line's gonna run right past our south pasture, and the mine wants more dumping ground for their runoff. Our place sits between both. See, Daddy said the judge has been after our land for 2 years. Daddy wouldn't sell. So now Daddy's dead, and Mama's sick, and the judge says he's just trying to help." Caleb let his breath out long and slow. "What did your daddy die of, Lily?" "The fever?" "Same fever your mama's got." "Yes, sir." "Same fever the well water's giving her?" She nodded. The boots in the corn were closer now. Caleb could hear 2 voices low arguing about something. One of them said the word girl. The other one laughed. "How far to your farm?" "Half a mile, sir. Through the corn and across the creek." "Climb on." She blinked. "Sir." "Climb on, behind me, hands on my belt. Don't let go for nothing." "Yes, sir." She let go of the stirrup and scrambled. Caleb reached down, caught her wrist, and swung her up behind him in one motion. She weighed less than a saddlebag full of feed. He felt her small hands knot themselves into his belt loops. "You hold on tight now, Lily Reed." "I'm holding, sir." "And no matter what you hear, no matter what comes out of that corn, you keep your head down. Understand?" "Yes, sir." He turned the mare a quarter step so his right hand, his gun hand, faced the corn. He didn't draw. Not yet. A drawn gun was a promise a man had to keep, and Caleb Walker had been trying for a year not to make any more of those. The stalks parted. 2 men stepped out onto the road. The first was tall and rangy, a Winchester resting easy in the crook of his arm. The second was shorter, thicker, with a stained vest, and a sidearm worn high and forward, like a man who fancied himself quick. The tall one stopped first. "Well now." He looked at the child clinging to Caleb's back. "Looks like our little chicken found herself a fox." Caleb didn't speak. "That'd be the Reed girl," the tall one said. "Belongs to the county now, friend. Hand her down." "Don't believe I will." The shorter one took a step forward. His hand drifted toward his sidearm. "Mister, you don't know what you're getting into." "You're right about that," Caleb said. "Why don't you tell me? This here is judge's business. County business. You ain't from here, so I'll say it plain. That child's mama is being taken into custody for her own good. The girl's going to a proper home. You're going to ride on. Everybody wins." Caleb tipped his hat back. "That's a real neat speech, friend. You practice it." The tall one didn't smile. "Don't be cute." "I ain't being cute. I'm being slow. I'm a slow man. Slow on the road, slow with words, slow to make trouble. You understand slow. I understand a man getting in over his head." "That's so." "Hand the girl down. We'll forget we saw you." "I got a better idea." Caleb's hand still rested easy on his thigh 2 inches from the butt of the revolver. "You boys are going to step back into that corn. You're going to go on back to whoever sent you. You're going to tell him a stranger picked the girl up off the road and is taking her home to her mama. You're going to leave the rest for tomorrow. And if we don't, then I reckon one of us ain't riding out of this cornfield." The shorter one's hand twitched. The tall one held up his free hand. "Easy, Joe." "He's bluffing Hatch." "Maybe he is." Hatch studied Caleb for a long moment. He took in the worn leather, the dust, the way Caleb's hand sat on his thigh, not on the gun, but not far from it. The stillness of him, the flat, dead quiet of his eyes. "Mister." You got a name? I got several. Any of them I might know. Couldn't say friend. Depends what you read. Hatch looked at him another second. Then he nodded once slow. Joe. What? Back in the corn. Hatch. Back. In. The corn. The shorter one swore under his breath but stepped back. Hatch tipped his hat to Caleb with 2 fingers, mocking. You're making a mistake, friend. Wouldn't be my first. The judge ain't a man who forgets a face. Then I'll be sure to wash mine before I see him. Hatch's mouth twitched, not quite a smile. He backed into the corn Winchester, still loose in his arm eyes on Caleb, until the green swallowed him. Caleb sat the mare and listened. He heard them moving, slower than they'd come, going west away from the road. He counted to 30 in his head, then to 60. Then he let his shoulders down half an inch. Lily. Yes, sir. You still holding? Yes, sir. Your hands shaking? A little, sir. Mine too. Sir. Yeah, girl. That man called you friend? He did. He didn't mean it. No, he didn't. Are they gonna come back? Caleb nudged the mare into a walk. They're gonna come back, Lily. Just not today. Today's enough. Today's enough. He almost smiled. Where's this creek of yours? That way, sir. Past the broken scarecrow. Then we're going past the broken scarecrow. They rode in silence for a stretch. The corn closed back over the road behind them. Somewhere far off, a meadowlark called twice and went quiet. Lily's grip on his belt loops eased a little. Mr. What's your name, Kay? Caleb. Caleb what? Caleb's enough for now. Yes, sir. A pause. Caleb. Yeah. Why'd you stop? He thought about that for a long time. Long enough that the mare's hooves had carried them another 50 yards before he answered. I had a sister once, Lily. Where is she now? She ain't. Oh. Did she look like me? No, girl. She didn't look a thing like you. Then how come you stopped? He didn't answer that one. The corn began to thin. Through a gap in the stalks he caught his first sight of the Reed place, a sagging barn, a slanting fence, a low cabin with smoke rising from one chimney. A line of washing hung on a rope, the clothes worn but clean. A woman stood on the porch. Even from this distance, Caleb could see she was leaning against the post. Not standing, leaning. The kind of leaning a person did when standing alone wasn't an option anymore. She had a shotgun in her hands. That your mama, Lily? Yes, sir. She always greet visitors with a shotgun. Lately, sir. Good. He pulled the mare up at the edge of the corn just out of range and lifted both hands so the woman could see he wasn't drawing anything. Ma'am? His voice carried across the dry yard. I got your daughter here, ma'am. She's all right. She come and found me on the road. The shotgun didn't lower. Lily. Mama. You walk where I can see you, baby. You walk over here right now. Caleb reached behind him and lowered Lily down. Her bare feet hit the dust. She ran. Halfway across the yard, her mama dropped one hand from the shotgun and grabbed her and pulled her tight against her hip without ever taking her eyes off Caleb. He sat the mare and waited. The woman walked Lily up to the porch. Then she turned, planted her boots, and brought the shotgun back up to her shoulder. Mister? Ma'am? You can turn that horse around and ride out the way you came in. I figured you'd say that. Then go. Ma'am, your daughter says you got men coming for your land. My daughter says a lot of things to a lot of strangers. She says you're sick. I ain't sick. You're leaning on that post like it's the only thing between you and the floor. The shotgun didn't waver. But the woman didn't answer right away either. Ma'am, my name's Caleb Walker. I ain't from the judge. I ain't from the mine. I ain't from the railroad. I'm a man on a tired horse with no place to be. I run into your girl on the road and 2 men come out of the corn after her. I sent them back into the corn. They'll be back. Tomorrow day after they'll be back. And when they come back, They're gonna come back with more of them. And what do you want, Mr. Walker? 3 days. 3 days of what? Of work. I'll fix your fence. I'll dig out your well. I'll do whatever needs doing. You feed me 1 meal a day and let me sleep in the barn. After 3 days, I ride on, or you run me off. Your choice. And in exchange, you and your girl stay alive long enough for me to ride on with a clear conscience. I don't need a man's conscience, Mr. Walker. No, ma'am, you don't. But your girl needs her mama, and her mama needs a fence that don't fall over when the wind blows. 3 days. The shotgun trembled. Not much, just enough. Abigail Reed looked at her daughter. Lily had buried her face against her mother's apron and was making a small sound that wasn't quite crying. Abigail looked back at Caleb. Barn's around back. There's hay. You touch my daughter, you so much as speak rough to her, and I will put both these barrels in your chest while you sleep. Are we clear, Mr. Walker? Crystal, ma'am. 3 days. 3 days. She lowered the shotgun an inch. Supper's at sundown. Wash up at the pump. And Mr. Walker, ma'am, don't drink the well water. Caleb tipped his hat. The mare under him let out a breath that sounded a lot like relief, and somewhere far off, back in the road behind him, back in the tall green stalks, a man named Hatch was already riding to tell a judge named Silas Whitmore that there was a stranger on the Reed farm with steady hands and dead eyes. But that was a tomorrow problem. Today, Caleb Walker climbed down off his horse in the dust of a dying widow's yard, lifted his hat to a sick woman with a shotgun and a 10-year-old child clinging to her dress, and made his peace with the fact that he wasn't riding any further west for at least 3 more days. The sun didn't ask permission to come up. It bled red over the eastern corn and put a long shadow across the barn door where Caleb Walker had been sitting awake for most of the night. He'd slept maybe 2 hours, maybe less. The hay was good. The barn was sound. But every time the wind shifted, his hand had moved to his revolver. Habit. Old habit. The kind a man didn't break in one night and one widow's barn. He stood. His back popped. He picked the straw out of his shirt. "All right," he said to the mare. "All right, girl. Let's see what kind of place we landed in." The mare blew at him. "You're an honest critter. I'll give you that." He walked out of the barn and into the yard. Abigail Reed was already at the pump. She didn't look at him. She worked the handle slow, like every push hurt her somewhere, and let the water fill a tin bucket. When the bucket was full, she set it down and pressed both hands flat against the small of her back and stood there breathing. "Ma'am, Mr. Walker, you're up early? Cows ain't kind to a person's sleep. You got cows. One, half dry. Lily milks her if I can't." "You couldn't this morning." She didn't answer that. Caleb tipped his hat back. "Ma'am, where's your wood axe?" "Why?" "Because I aim to start with the fence on the south line. I'm gonna need to cut rails." "That axe is a man's axe. Heavy." "Yes, ma'am." "My husband cut with it." "Yes, ma'am." "It's in the shed, behind the harness." "Much obliged." He'd taken 3 steps when she said his name. "Mr. Walker." He turned. She was still standing at the pump, both hands flat on her back, looking at him like she was trying to make up her mind whether to apologize or to shoot him. "My husband's name was John." "Yes, ma'am." "He was a good man." "I expect he was, ma'am." He'd not have wanted a stranger swinging his axe. Caleb thought about that. "Then I'll swing it like a stranger ought to, ma'am. Slow and careful, and only as long as you need." She picked up the bucket and turned away. Suit yourself. By the time the sun cleared the corn, Caleb had cut 6 rails. He worked with his shirt off and his suspenders down. His back ran with sweat. The axe was old, but the head was good, and every time he swung it, he thought about the man who'd swung it before him, the man whose wife was sick, and whose daughter coughed in the night, and whose well water tasted like a tin can left out in the rain. He'd tasted it. The first thing he'd done after Abigail walked back to the house was lift the dipper at the pump and put it to his lips. He pulled it back before he swallowed. Metal, not just iron. Something else under the iron. something flat and chemical and wrong. He'd spit it into the dust. Then he'd noticed the corn. The rows nearest the creek, the ones that ought to have been the lushest, the deepest green, the ones that fed off the runoff. Those rows were yellow. Not summer-stressed yellow, sick yellow, curled, spotted. Some of the lower leaves carried a rust-colored streak that looked almost like a burn. He'd stood there with the dipper in his hand and looked at those rows for a long time. Then he'd gone and gotten the axe. He set down a finished rail. He picked up the axe. He swung. Behind him, a small voice said, "Mister." He stopped mid-swing. He set the axe down slow. Lily stood 10 feet behind him in a clean blue dress holding a tin cup with both hands. "Mama says you'd be thirsty." "Your mama's right. She boiled it." "What's that?" "The water." Lily walked the cup over and held it up. "She always boils it now. She says it tastes less wrong if you boil it." Caleb took the cup. "Thank you, Lily." "You're welcome, sir." He drank. The water was hot and still metallic, but less. He drank the whole cup. "Lily." "Yes, sir." "Hold the cup for me a minute." She took it back. "Hold it steady." She tried. Her hand shook. She tried to make it stop. He watched her press her thumb against the side of the cup, tighten her fingers. "Will it still?" The tremor crawled up her wrist and made the cup chatter against her palm. "How long?" Caleb said. "Sir, how long has your hand done that?" "Since Daddy died." "Just the one hand." "Both, sir. The other one's worse." She held up her left hand without his asking. The shake was bigger, like a leaf in a slow wind. "Does it hurt?" "No, sir. It just won't stop." "What's the doctor say?" "He says it's nerves. He says I'm a nervous child. He says I lost my daddy, so I'm scared, and the shake will go when I stop being scared." "And do you feel scared, Lily?" "All the time, sir." Caleb took the cup back. He set it down in the dust. He squatted so he was eye level with her. "Lily Reed." "Yes, sir." "You listen to me. You ain't a nervous child." "Sir, you're a brave child. You're the bravest child I ever met in my life. A nervous child don't run in front of a stranger's horse. A nervous child don't grab a saddle and hang on with both hands when a grown man tells her to let go. You hear me?" "Yes, sir." "That shake in your hand ain't from being scared. That shake's from something else. And I aim to find out what." "Sir?" "Yeah." "Mama said not to tell you about my hands." "Why not?" "She said you'd run." Caleb looked at her. "Tell your mama I don't run from sick children, Lily." "Yes, sir." "And tell her if her own hands are doing the same thing as yours, she ought to stop hiding them." Lily's eyes went big, and she didn't say anything. Caleb stood up and picked the axe back up. "Go on inside, girl. Get out of this sun." She went. By noon, Caleb had cut 12 rails, dropped 2 posts, and torn down the leaning section of the south fence. He'd worked steady. He'd worked the way a man worked when he didn't want to think. The wagon came in from the east. He heard it before he saw it. A loose wheel singing on the axle. An old man's voice talking to 2 mules. "Ho now, ho there, Belle. Ho, you sorry creature." Caleb set the axe down. He didn't reach for the revolver. The voice was old. The voice wasn't trying to be quiet. The wagon rounded the bend in the road and pulled up at the edge of the yard. A man climbed down, 60 if he was a day. Gray beard, stooped shoulders, hands the size of dinner plates, and burned from a lifetime over a forge. "Mr. Reed?" Caleb walked toward him. "Mr. Reed's been in the ground 8 months, friend." The old man stopped. He took his hat off slow. "Lord forgive me." "For what?" "For forgetting. You knew him. I shod every horse the man ever owned." The old man worked the brim of the hat in his hands. "Name's Bell. Amos Bell. I keep the forge in Heartstone." "Caleb Walker." "Mr. Walker." Amos Bell looked at the torn-down section of fence. He looked at the rails. He looked at Caleb. He looked at the house. "You here helping the widow Reed?" 3 days' work. 3 days. Yes, sir? Amos Bell put his hat back on his head. Mr. Walker? I ain't gonna get down off this here wagon. You understand? I think I do. I ain't gonna step on her porch. I ain't gonna shake her hand. I ain't gonna stay long enough for a man with a notepad to make a record I was here. Yes, sir. But I knew John Reed, and I knew him to be the best man I ever had the privilege to take coin from. And what's been done to his wife since he died is a thing the Lord will set fire to in his own time. Mr. Bell. Yes, son. What was done to him? Amos Bell's jaw worked. He didn't die of the fever, Mr. Walker. Caleb stilled. Say that again. He died of the fever according to Doc Hatcher. He died of the fever according to the certificate the county filed. He died of the fever according to anybody who put it down on paper. And according to you. According to me, he died of being a man who wouldn't shut his mouth. The mule blew. The wagon creaked. Mr. Bell, you're telling me John Reed was killed. I'm telling you he went into town 2 days before he died, and stood in front of the saloon and shouted that Silas Whitmore was poisoning a creek and killing children. I'm telling you the next morning he had a sickness on him he didn't have the night before. I'm telling you he was dead in 36 hours. Did you tell anyone? Who would I tell, son? The judge. The sheriff. The sheriff drinks at the judge's table. The doctor takes the judge's money for diagnoses he never made. Then why are you telling me? Amos Bell looked at him a long time. Because 2 boys come out of the corn yesterday looking for a child, and only one of them come back to town with a story. And the story he told was that the second one was face down in the dirt with a horseshoe print on his neck. Caleb didn't blink. That ain't what happened. I know what happened, son. Hatch don't lie to me about his own bad day. I'm just telling you what's going to be told in town tonight. Who's it going to be told to? To the judge. And the judge is going to decide what kind of stranger you are. Caleb let that settle. Mr. Bell? Yeah. You came out here to warn me. I came out here to warn you, and to put something in your hand. He turned and dug in the bed of the wagon and came back with a stoppered glass jar wrapped in burlap. He held it out. What is it? Creek water. I took it 3 days ago at the mouth where it leaves the mine property. I was going to take it to a state man if I ever found the nerve. I ain't found the nerve. You got steadier hands than I do, Mr. Walker. You take it. Caleb took the jar. It was heavier than water ought to be. Mr. Bell. Son. Why ain't you found the nerve? The old man's hands shook on the wagon rail. The same shake. Slow. Like a leaf in a slow wind. I got the same shake the Reed child's got, Mr. Walker. I've been drinking that water for 50 years. By the time John Reed started shouting, half of me was already buried. Caleb wrapped the jar back up in the burlap. Mr. Bell. Yes. You ride back to Hearthstone. You go quiet. You don't tell another soul you was here. And when the time comes, when a federal man asks you what you know, you tell him every word. You understand? Yes, son. Look at me. The old man looked. Every word, Mr. Bell. Every word. Amos Bell climbed back up onto the wagon. He turned the mules. He didn't look back. The wagon creaked away down the road, and the corn closed up behind it. Caleb stood holding the jar in his hand. From the porch, very quiet, Abigail Reed said, "Bring it inside." He turned. She was standing in the open door, pale, hand on the frame, listening. She'd heard every word. He brought it inside. She'd boiled coffee on the stove. He set 2 tin cups on the table and pointed at one. Sit. Yes, ma'am. Mr. Walker. Ma'am. How much of that did my daughter hear? None of it. She's in the garden. You're sure? I watched her go. Abigail sat down across from him. She did it slow. He could see now what he hadn't been able to see at the pump, the way her hands trembled when she set the coffee cups down. The same shake, worse than Lily's. She caught him looking. She put her hands flat on the table. How long? Caleb said. 5 months. And your husband before he died? 6 weeks of it. Worse and worse. And Doc Hatcher said my husband was a heavy drinker. Was he? He took communion wine on Sundays, Mr. Walker. That was the whole of it. Caleb wrapped his hand around the coffee cup. Ma'am. Yes. Why are you still drinking that water? Because we got no other water, Mr. Walker. The creek runs through Whitmore's land before it reaches us. The neighbor's well is dry. The town pump is a 4-hour ride. I boil it because boiling does something even if I don't know what. I cut it with milk when there's milk. I have prayed over it. I have strained it through a sheet. I have done everything a woman who is not a chemist can think to do, and my daughter's hands shake worse every month, and I have not been able to make it stop. Ma'am? Don't ma'am me, Mr. Walker. Not on this. All right. She stood up too fast. She caught the edge of the table. He half rose. She waved him off and stood there with her eyes shut. Mrs. Reed, don't. Sit down. I'll sit when I please. Sit down, woman. She opened her eyes. He'd never raised his voice, but the word woman had come out flat and tired and worried, and it hung in the kitchen between them like a flag. She sat down. She put her face in her hands. She did not cry. Abigail Reed did not appear to be a woman who cried in front of strangers. But for a long minute, she sat with her face in her hands and just breathed. Caleb did not speak. When she lifted her face, her eyes were dry. Mr. Walker, I need to ask you something. Ask it. That man Bell said you put a man down in the corn. I didn't. He said, I sent 2 men back into the corn. Neither one of them had a horseshoe print on his neck when they walked off. Hatch is lying to make his own boss madder. Why would he do that? Because if the judge thinks I'm a killer, the judge brings down a posse. A posse is the kind of force that takes the farm and the girl and the stranger all in one sweep. Whereas if I'm just a drifter, the judge has to be careful, has to make it look legal. Hatch wants this done quick. You think like a lawman, Mr. Walker. I have done. Done lawman work. Done lawman work. For who? United States. A marshal. A deputy. And what are you now? Caleb turned the coffee cup in his hand. Tired, ma'am. Tired. She looked at him a long moment. Mr. Walker. Mrs. Reed, if the judge thinks you're a killer, the judge will hang you. If the judge thinks you're a drifter, the judge will run you off. Either way, you're right out of this. So why are you still sitting at my table? He didn't answer for a while. Then he said, I had a sister, ma'am. I'm sorry. She'd be 26 this October. What happened? A raid, 6 years ago. I was a half-mile away, and I heard the shooting, and I didn't get there in time. And so when a 10-year-old girl runs in front of my horse in a cornfield and says her mama's being killed slow, I find I cannot ride past her. Abigail Reed didn't speak. That's the whole of it, ma'am. There's no nobility in it. There's no plan. There's just a sister I didn't save and a girl I might. She looked at her hands on the table. Mr. Walker. Ma'am. There's a custody hearing day after tomorrow. I know. You don't know how I know that, Mr. Walker. How do you know? Because the judge's clerk brought the papers yesterday at noon, an hour before Lily ran for the road. Caleb set down the cup. He gave you 48 hours. He gave me 48 hours. And he sent the men into the corn after Lily because if she runs and gets hurt and gets lost, the case for her removal makes itself. He doesn't need to win a hearing. He needs me to fail to bring her to one. That son of a... Yes, Mr. Walker. Pardon me. There is nothing to pardon. Caleb stood. He walked to the window. He pulled the curtain back an inch. He looked out at the road. Mrs. Reed. Yes. Day after tomorrow. The hearing's where? The courthouse in Hartstone. What time? 10 in the morning. He let the curtain fall. Then we got a day and a half to find out what's in that creek and find out who else knows it. We. Mr. Walker, you said 3 days. I'm still saying 3 days. You said you'd ride on. I will ride on. After when? After Whitmore's broke. Abigail Reed put her face in her hands again. This time for one short second, her shoulders shook. When she lifted her head, she said one word. All right. Caleb did not eat the supper Abigail offered him. He told her to put it in a bowl and cover it. He told her he'd eat it cold at midnight. He told her to bolt the door and to keep Lily on the inside wall of the cabin and to put the shotgun across her knees and not to open the door for anyone, not even him, unless she heard him whistle 3 times slow. Then he walked out of the cabin and into the yard. And he started to look. He looked at the barn first. He looked at the loft. He looked under the hay. He looked at the floorboards of the tack room, every one walking heel to toe and listening for the sound a hollow board makes under a man's weight. He found 3 boards that gave a different note. He marked them with a piece of chalk from the harness bench. He looked at the smokehouse, empty, nothing buried in the dirt floor. He looked at the well. He drew up a bucket. He held it to the last of the light. The water looked like water. He sniffed it. It smelled like a penny held under your tongue. He looked at the corn. He walked the south rows. He walked the east rows. He looked at the leaves. He looked at the dirt where the rows met the creek. He squatted and picked up a handful and let it run through his fingers. It was dark, too dark. The dirt at his back 20 rows from the creek was the color of dry leather. The dirt here was almost black. He scraped it with his fingernail. It smelled bitter. He stood up and looked across the creek. On the far bank, Whitmore land, a pipe came out of the ground. A short iron pipe, no bigger around than his fist. The pipe wasn't running now, but the dirt around the mouth of it was the same dark color as the dirt under his feet, and a line of dead grass ran from the pipe in a long arc toward the creek. He stood there a long time. Then he turned and walked back to the house. He whistled 3 times slow at the door. Abigail opened it with the shotgun in her free hand. Anything. A pipe. What pipe? On the far bank, coming out of the ground. They're dumping into the creek from a buried line. Not all the time, but when they want to. Probably at night. Can you prove it? I can prove they own the pipe. I can prove a pipe is there. To prove what comes out of it, I'd need to see them open it. How do you do that? I sit in the corn for 2 nights and watch. You don't have 2 nights, Mr. Walker. I know. Behind Abigail, in the lamplight, Lily Reed sat up from her cot. Caleb. Lily. Caleb, my hands. She held them up. Both hands were shaking now. Bad. Not a leaf shake. A real shake. She could not hold them still, and tears were running down her face, but she was not crying out loud. Lily, baby. Mama, my hands won't stop. Abigail dropped the shotgun on the table. She crossed the room. She pulled the child against her hip and held both of Lily's wrists in her own shaking hands. It's all right, baby. It's all right. Mama, when's it gonna stop? Soon, baby. You said soon before. Abigail looked over her daughter's head at Caleb. Caleb walked over. He squatted. He took Lily's hands in his own. His hands were steady. Lily Reed. Yes. Look at me. Yes. Press your hands on mine, hard as you can, like you're holding them down. She pressed. He pressed back just enough. Now keep pressing. She kept pressing. The shake didn't stop, but it slowed. Whatever she was fighting in her own body, having something to fight against, gave it somewhere to go. There, Caleb said. There you are. My hands are still shaking. They're allowed. You ain't a machine. You're a child. They can shake all they want, but you keep pressing. I'm pressing. Good girl. He held her hands for a long time. When her breathing slowed, when her shoulders came down, when Abigail had wiped her own face quick with the back of her wrist, Caleb stood up. Mrs. Reed? Yes? I'm going to sleep in the kitchen tonight, not the barn. Mr. Walker? I'll take the floor, by the door, with my back to the stove. You and the girl in the bedroom. The shotgun stays with you. But I am not sleeping 40 feet from this child tonight. Are we clear, ma'am? She did not argue. We are clear. Whitmore came at dawn. Caleb heard the carriage before anyone saw it. Not a buggy, a carriage, 2 horses, iron-shod wheels on dry dirt, and the sound of a driver who knew his trade. He was up. He'd been up since 4. He had his shirt on and his boots on and his revolver on, and he had eaten the cold supper Abigail had left him in a clean bowl with a clean cloth over it. He opened the door before they knocked. The carriage had stopped at the far end of the yard. A driver up top. 2 men beside him on horseback. One was Hatch. The other one Caleb didn't know. The carriage door stood open. A man was stepping down. He was not what Caleb had pictured. Silas Whitmore was thin. Tall but thin. White hair cut neat under a tall hat. A black suit that fit him. A silver watch chain. Spectacles on a chain too. He moved like a man who had never hurried in his life. He smiled when he saw Caleb. Not a sneer, a smile. Warm and almost kindly. "Good morning, sir." "Morning." "I don't believe we've had the pleasure." "I reckon we haven't." "My name is Silas Whitmore. I am the presiding judge of this circuit." "Caleb Walker." "Mr. Walker, may I trouble you for the lady of the house?" "You may not." Whitmore tilted his head 1/2 inch. The smile did not change. "I beg your pardon." "Mrs. Reed is unwell, Judge. She ain't taking callers this morning." "Mr. Walker, I am not a caller. I am a court officer. I have come on official business pertaining to a hearing scheduled for tomorrow morning." "Then you can wait for tomorrow morning." "Mr. Walker?" "Judge." Whitmore stopped. Caleb stepped down off the porch. Slow. 1 step. Then another. He stopped at the bottom of the steps so he was eye level with Whitmore on the flat dust of the yard. He did not put his hand on the revolver. He did not have to. The men on horseback had seen the revolver. Hatch had seen it before. "Judge Whitmore." "Mr. Walker, you are standing on a sick woman's property at sunrise with 2 armed men and a driver and a carriage built for a man going to a funeral. You are not here to deliver a message. You are here to see what shape she's in. You are here to count how many people I am. You are here to make sure the door opens for you, so that tomorrow you can stand in front of a courtroom and say, 'I refused you entry,' and the refusal proves she is hostile and unfit. I know what you are here for, sir, and I am telling you polite, as I am able, that this door does not open this morning." Whitmore looked at him. His smile did not falter, but something behind the smile did a small adjustment, like a man recounting cards. "Mr. Walker." "Yes, sir." "You are an articulate man." "Thank you, sir." "May I ask where you are from?" "You may not." "May I ask what brings you to the Reed property?" "You may not." "May I ask how long you intend to stay?" "As long as it takes, sir." "To do what, Mr. Walker?" "To finish my work." "And what work is that?" "The fence on the south line is leaning. The well needs digging. The widow needs a back porch that don't sag." "Charity work." "Honest work." "For a widow you did not know yesterday." "For a widow I know today." Whitmore took off his spectacles. He cleaned them on a small white cloth. He put them back on. The whole movement took about as long as it took a man to draw a revolver, and Caleb knew it was meant to. "Mr. Walker, you should know that I have already been informed of an unfortunate incident in a cornfield yesterday afternoon." "I'd be surprised if you hadn't." "A young man in my employ has not returned home." "That's a shame." "His mother is grief-stricken." "Sounds like she ought to have a word with her son's friends. I reckon they know where he wandered off." Hatch's horse shifted. Whitmore did not look at Hatch. Whitmore kept looking at Caleb. "Mr. Walker, I will be plain with you. Whatever you believe you are doing here, you are interfering in a legal proceeding involving a child's welfare. I have authority in this county. I have witnesses. I have a calendar. Tomorrow at 10 o'clock that calendar will run, and the court will rule on Lily Reed's custody, and the ruling will not be affected 1 inch by your presence." "Then you got no reason to be here this morning." "I came as a courtesy." "You came as a wolf, Judge." Whitmore's mouth tightened, just a hair. "Mr. Walker?" "Sir?" "Be in that courtroom tomorrow." I will be, sir. Bring whatever you have. I will, sir. And know that whatever you have will not be enough. That'll be for a federal man to decide, sir. The smile came back, but it was thinner now. Whitmore touched the brim of his hat. Good morning, Mr. Walker. Good morning, Judge. Whitmore turned. He walked back to the carriage. The driver helped him up. The door shut. Hatch turned his horse and looked at Caleb one long second before he wheeled around. The carriage left. The dust rose behind it and hung in the still morning air and did not settle for a long time. From the doorway, Abigail Reed said very quietly, "He's afraid of you." Caleb did not turn around. "No, ma'am. He's afraid of what I might find before 10 o'clock tomorrow." He stepped back up onto the porch. He took his hat off. He looked at the woman in the doorway and at the girl behind her clinging to her skirts and at the long road where the dust was still hanging. He put his hat back on. "Mrs. Reed." "Mr. Walker." "You best put on a kettle. We got till sundown to figure out where your husband hid what he died for, and I do not aim to walk into that courtroom with empty hands." The kettle was still warm. Caleb walked past it without looking and set himself in the middle of the kitchen and turned in a slow circle. "Mrs. Reed." "Yes." "Your husband. Where did he write?" "At the kitchen table." "Where did he keep paper?" "In the drawer there, the one under the breadboard." "Show me." She pulled the drawer. Caleb dumped it on the table. Recipes, a laundry bill, 2 pages of seed prices in John Reed's neat, slow hand, a Bible verse copied out in pencil. Nothing else. "Anywhere else. In the bedroom. Show me." She walked him in. He pulled the mattress. Nothing. He pulled the dresser drawers and turned them over one by one. Nothing. He felt the seams of the patchwork quilt. He felt the lining of John Reed's old coat hanging on a peg. Nothing. "Mr. Walker." He kept his ledger in the barn. Where in the barn? He took it out with him every morning. He brought it back in at night. I never asked him where he stored it. "Why not?" "Because he asked me not to." Caleb stilled. "When did he ask you that?" 3 weeks before he died. "He told you he was hiding it." "He told me there was a thing he was working on, and the less I knew, the safer my daughter would be. He told me he loved me. He told me he would explain on a Sunday after church. He died on a Friday." Caleb did not answer. He walked out of the bedroom. He went straight to the barn. The chalk marks on the 3 loose boards were still where he had put them at midnight. He pulled the harness bench aside and got down on his knees and put his fingers in the gap of the first one and pried. Hay dust, a nail. Nothing. He pried the second. A field mouse skull, a bit of straw. Nothing. He pried the third. His fingers touched canvas. He pulled. It was a roll of stiff oilcloth 18 inches long tied at both ends with twine. It was heavy, heavier than paper. He set it on the harness bench. He cut the twine with his pocket knife. He unrolled it. Inside the oilcloth was a leather-bound ledger. Folded inside the ledger were 6 pages of pencil-written notes. Folded inside the notes was a hand-drawn map. Caleb did not breathe for a count of 3. Then he picked the ledger up and walked back to the house and laid it on the kitchen table. "Mrs. Reed." Abigail came in fast. Lily came in behind, her eyes huge. "You found—" "I found it." Abigail's hand went to her mouth. She did not cry. She put one palm flat on the cover of the ledger like a woman touching her husband's chest. "Mr. Walker." "Ma'am?" "Read it to me." He opened the ledger. The first page was dated April of last year. John Reed's handwriting. Slow, neat. Pencil. April 14th. Creek smells wrong south of the Whitmore line. Tasted it. Metallic. Brought a cup home. Wife says the same. Will test at the next opportunity. April 22nd. Brought a vial of creek water to old Doc Mason at the Methodist Mission. Doc Mason was a chemist before he was a preacher. Did a precipitation test in front of me. Says there is lead in the water. Says there is also something he does not have the means to name. May 3rd. Doc Mason rode south for the conference. Has not returned. Sent a letter to the territorial assayer in Lincoln. No reply. May 10th. Lily's hands have begun to shake. She is 8 years old. I have begun to mark her tremor by the half-month. Abigail made a sound. She did not let it out. Caleb did not look at her. He kept reading. June 1st. Walked the creek line at sundown. Counted 3 iron pipes coming out of the ground on the Whitmore side. 2 are old and dry. The 3rd is new. The 3rd runs at night. June 15th. Counted 7 nights of running between June 1st and tonight. Pattern between 2 and 4 in the morning, always when the moon is hidden. Pipe runs for 40 minutes. Water from the pipe is the color of weak tea. July 4th. Town picnic. Doc Hatcher told me to my face that my daughter's tremor was an inherited nervous condition. I asked who in our family had it. He laughed and walked off. I am putting my faith in the assayer's office in Lincoln. Abigail had begun to shake. Caleb did not stop. July 22nd. The assayer's office in Lincoln has written back. They will accept samples for testing, but only sealed samples in standard glass containers with chain of custody markings. I have ordered the containers. They arrive next week. August 9th. Containers arrived, took 4 samples, sealed and labeled. Tonight I take them to the watchman. Caleb stopped. He looked at Lily. Lily was looking at the ledger like the ledger had said her name. Lily. Yes, sir. What did your daddy mean by the watchman? Lily's small hands nodded together. She looked at her mother. Her mother nodded once. It's the scarecrow, sir. The scarecrow. In the deep corn. Past the broken row. Daddy made me promise. He said the watchman is the man we trust with what we cannot carry home. Did he show you what he buried? No, sir. He just told me if anything ever happened to him, the watchman knows. He said it 3 times. He said it the night before he got sick. Caleb closed the ledger slow. He picked up the folded map. He opened it. A pencil map of the back 40. Hash marks for corn rows. A small X at a spot deep in the field, with a notation in John Reed's neat hand, Watchman. Box. North side 18 inches down between the boots. Mrs. Reed? Yes. We are going into the corn tonight. At what hour? Midnight. With Lily. With Lily. Mr. Walker, I will not bring my child into... Your child is the only one who knows where the watchman is, ma'am. She found him with her father. I can read the map. I cannot find a buried box in 160 acres of corn in the dark without her. We bring her. We protect her. We come home together. Abigail looked at her daughter. Lily said very small, I want to come, Mama. Baby. Daddy showed me Mama. I know the row. Abigail's hand moved up to Lily's hair and stayed there. All right, she said. Caleb stood. Mrs. Reed. Yes. We move at midnight. Between now and then you eat, both of you. Lily takes a nap whether she wants one or not. You sit by the window with that shotgun. I am going to load the wagon. Mr. Walker. Ma'am. They will be watching the road. I know. They will see a wagon. I am not going by the road. Caleb checked his revolver. He checked it again. The kitchen clock on the shelf read 11:15. The lamp on the table had been turned down so low the flame was the size of a child's fingernail. Abigail came out of the bedroom carrying a folded shawl and a small canteen. Lily. I'm ready, Mama. Boots laced. Tight, Mama. Mr. Walker. Mrs. Reed. My husband used to say there were 2 ways to walk through tall corn at night. One was fast and noisy. The other was slow and listening. He said the listening one came home. Then we listen. Yes, Mr. Walker. He blew out the lamp. They went out the back door of the cabin, not the front. Caleb led. Abigail came second with the shotgun in both hands. Lily came third, her small fingers hooked into the back of her mother's belt. The mare and 1 mule waited in the kitchen garden, saddled and rigged their hooves, wrapped in burlap to keep them quiet. We walk, Caleb said. We walk slow. We do not speak unless I speak first. If you hear a man cough in the corn, you do not run. You drop. You wait. You listen. Are we clear? We are clear. Yes, sir. They walked. The corn closed over them in 20 paces. They walked maybe 100 yards before Caleb stopped. He held up one hand. Everyone froze. A long way off, far enough that it might have been a coyote, a horse blew. Then nothing. Caleb waited. Counted to 30, counted to 60. The horse did not blow again. He nodded once. They walked. Lily tapped his back twice. He turned. She pointed. A row of stalks had been bent at the chest, every fourth one like a man had walked through with his elbow out. The bends were old. The corn had grown around them. "Daddy's row," Lily whispered. "Good girl." They turned. They followed the broken stalks. 40 paces, 60 paces, 80. The scarecrow. It rose up out of the corn like a man with his arms out. Old straw. A flour sack head with a face drawn in coal that the rain had half washed away. A flat-brimmed hat that had been black once. A shirt that had been John Reed's. Caleb stopped. He set down the small spade he was carrying. He knelt at the foot of the scarecrow's pole. He looked up at Lily. "North side, between the boots." "Yes, sir." "Stand watch with your mother." "Yes, sir." He dug. The dirt came up easy at first, then dense. Then he hit something that wasn't dirt. He looked up at Abigail. "Mrs. Reed." "Yes, it's here." He dug it out. A tin box the size of a Bible latched with a small iron clasp wrapped in oilcloth and waxed at the seams. He set it in his lap. He cut the wax with his knife. He flicked the latch. Inside the box, 4 sealed glass jars, each marked in pencil with a date. A small notebook tied with string, and folded twice a single piece of paper with the seal of the territorial assayer at the top. Caleb took the paper out. He could not read it in the dark, but he could see the seal. "Mrs. Reed." "What is it?" "It's a reply." "A reply to what?" "To your husband's letter. He must have written one more time. The seal is dated July 28th. "What does it say?" "I cannot read it in the dark." "Mr. Walker, the date." "Yes." "My husband died on the 29th. Caleb did not answer. He folded the paper. He put it back in the box. He latched the box. He put the box in the canvas sack on his hip. He was reaching for the spade when a man laughed in the corn. Not close. Not far. The wrong direction. East. Between them and the cabin. Caleb's hand went to the revolver. "Down," he whispered. They dropped. Lily's breath went fast and small. Abigail wrapped one arm around her and pressed her down lower. Voices. 2 of them. 3. "Saw a lamp out the back of the house an hour ago. Then it went dark." "That don't mean they're in here." "It don't mean they ain't either." "Hatch said spread out and don't shoot till he gives the say." "Hatch ain't out here in the corn, is he?" "Hatch is up at the road with the judge." Caleb's jaw set. Boots in the dirt. Closer. Maybe 40 feet. Maybe 30. He looked at Abigail. He pointed at her, then at Lily, then west back toward the cabin. He pointed at himself, then east. She shook her head once, hard. He pointed again, west. She mouthed, no. The boots came closer. Caleb made a decision. He stood up. Not all the way. Half up. Enough to break a stalk above his head. The stalk snapped loud as a pistol shot in the still air. The voices stopped. Then one of them yelled, There he is!" Caleb dropped and ran, east, away from Abigail, away from Lily. He ran 20 paces and shouted, "Hatch, you sorry son of a—" and then dropped and turned and ran north. Behind him the men crashed into the corn after him. He ran 60 yards before he stopped. He pressed himself against a row. He breathed. Then he heard something that turned his blood. A glass smashing. A whoosh. A man's voice, a different one further off, shouting, "What are you doing, you fool?" and the smell of kerosene, and the sound that dry summer corn makes when fire takes it. He turned. A line of orange was climbing the stalks 50 yards back, climbing fast. The wind that had died at noon had come up at midnight, and it was pushing the fire west. West. Toward Abigail. Toward Lily. Toward the scarecrow. Caleb ran. He ran into the smoke. Abigail. Caleb. Her voice, 20 yards ahead, then a coughing fit so hard he heard her go down on one knee. Abigail, hold! He reached her. She was on the ground. The shotgun was on the ground beside her. Her face was streaked black already. She grabbed his wrist. Lily. Where is she? She ran. The fire came up between us. She ran north. She ran toward the watchman. Get up. Caleb, I can't see her. Get up. He pulled her to her feet. She swayed. Mrs. Reed, listen to me. You take this sack. You walk west. You count 50 paces. You break out of the corn at the south fence. You wait there for me and the child. Do not come back into this fire. Do you hear me? Caleb. Do you hear me, woman? I hear you. He pushed the sack into her arms. She grabbed his shirt with her free hand. She pulled his face down to hers. She did not kiss him. She put her forehead against his for 1 second and said one word. Both. Both, he said. She let go. She turned. She went west. He turned. He ran north. The fire was on his right side now. He could feel the heat through his shirt. Stalks were popping like cap guns. A long ribbon of flame shot up into the sky as a dry row went all at once. Lily! Nothing. Lily Reed. A small cough. Off to his left, close to the scarecrow. He plunged through the row. She was on her knees at the foot of the scarecrow's pole. She had one of the glass jars from the box clutched against her chest with both hands. Her face was black with smoke. She was coughing too hard to call out. Lily! He scooped her up. She weighed less than a saddlebag full of feed. He felt her arms wrap around his neck, and the cold glass of the jar press against the side of his throat. Hold on, girl. Caleb, don't talk. Don't breathe deep. Hold on. He turned. The fire had cut him off from the way he had come. He stood there for 1/2 second with the child in his arms and the wall of orange in front of him, and the heat already crisping the hair on his forearms. Lily. Yes. You hold tight. You shut your eyes. You do not let go of me. Do you hear? Yes, sir. He shut his own eyes. He ran. He ran through the fire. It was 3 rows. Maybe 4. He felt his sleeve catch. He felt his hat go. He felt something hot kiss the back of his neck. He heard Lily make a small sound against his collar, and he ran harder. He broke into clear corn. He kept running. He ran another 40 yards before he understood the fire was behind him. He kept running. He came out at the south fence and went down on his knees in the dirt and turned so Lily would land on top of him, not under him, and he set her down beside him and pulled her up and looked at her face. Lily. I'm here. You burned? No, sir. You sure? Sir, you're smoking. He looked at his own sleeve. It was. He slapped it out with his bare hand. Mr. Walker. Abigail's voice. To the west. He turned. She came out of the dark at a run, the sack in one hand and the shotgun in the other, and she went straight past Caleb and dropped to her knees and grabbed her daughter and pulled the child into her lap and put her hand over Lily's eyes and made a sound that Caleb would remember for the rest of his life. It was not a cry. It was the sound a woman made when she was not allowed to cry yet. Behind them, the cornfield burned, a great red wall of it. 60 acres of summer corn going at once. The dry stalks went up in great woofs, and the wind pushed the line west, and the sparks rose 200 feet into the black sky like 1,000 small souls. Caleb sat in the dirt with his back against a fence post and watched it. After a while he said, Mrs. Reed. Yes. Do you have the box? I have the box. All of it. All of it, Mr. Walker. Lily. Yes, sir. Do you have your jar? She held it up. The glass was hot. The seal was unbroken. Good girl. Caleb. Yeah. I picked the one with the latest date, because Daddy said the latest one was the worst. Caleb stared at the child. Then he laughed. A short, hard, surprised laugh that came up out of him before he could stop it. It was the first time he had laughed in a long while, and it cracked his voice on the way out. Lily Reed. Yes, sir. You are the smartest child this country ever made. Yes, sir. Abigail was rocking her now slow back and forth, both arms around the child. She looked at Caleb over Lily's hair. Caleb. Yeah. They will say we said it. I know. They will say we burned our own field to destroy evidence of nothing. I know. They will tell the courtroom tomorrow morning we are arsonists and unfit and... Mrs. Reed. Yes. Tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock, you and I are walking into that courthouse with a sealed jar dated 4 weeks after your husband's grave was dug, and a letter from the territorial assayer dated the day before that grave was dug, and a ledger in your husband's own hand documenting every dump from a buried pipe on Whitmore land. We are walking in with the truth in a tin box. Let them try. She did not answer. She bent her face against the top of her daughter's head and held it there. The fire pushed west and burned and burned. It would not reach the cabin. The wind was wrong for that, and the south fence held a wide enough fire break in the cut hay. But it would take the field, the whole north half of the Reed farm, the summer's crop, the year's living. It would not take what was in the canvas sack. A man on horseback came up out of the dark on the roadside of the fence. He pulled up hard. Caleb's hand was already on the revolver. The rider held up both hands. Walker. Bell, Amos Bell, the blacksmith, on a borrowed horse, without his wagon. He swung down. Saw the fire from town. Half of Hartstone is on the way. I rode ahead. Who's coming? Doc Hatcher, the sheriff, 2 deputies, a wagon of bucket men, and a federal marshal. Caleb went very still. Say that again. A federal marshal, Mr. Walker. He rode in tonight on the 8 o'clock stage. He's been looking for John Reed's letters for 3 weeks. He says he got a wire from a deputy named Walker out of Fort Smith 6 days ago telling him to come. Caleb did not move. Abigail looked up at him over her daughter's head. Mr. Walker. Mrs. Reed. You wired a federal marshal. I wired a man I once rode with, ma'am, 6 days ago in the town before this one. I told him there was a place with the wrong kind of judge, and I'd send word when I got there. I never did get word back. I thought he hadn't come. Amos Bell tied his horse to the fence. He came, Mr. Walker. He's at my forge right now. He saw the smoke and rode to the courthouse first. Whitmore's not at the courthouse. Whitmore's house is dark. The marshal asked me where the Reed farm was. I said I'd take him at sunup. He said sunup was too late. I said I would come ahead. So here I am. Caleb stood. His legs almost did not hold him. He locked his knees. Mr. Bell. Son, you ride back. You ride right now. You tell the marshal where we are. You tell him we have evidence in a sealed box from John Reed dated August. You tell him we have a sealed reply from the territorial assayer dated July. You tell him a fire was set in our corn tonight by men in Whitmore's pay. You tell him we will be at the courthouse at 10 o'clock, and he is welcome to ride here at dawn, or he is welcome to ride with us. I'll tell him. And Mr. Bell. Yeah. Stop being afraid. Amos Bell looked at him a long second. Then he nodded once, climbed back onto the horse, and rode for town at a full gallop. Caleb watched him go. Then he turned and looked at the woman and the child in the dirt at his feet. Abigail Reed had stopped rocking. She was looking up at him with an expression he had not seen on her face before. He could not have named it. Mr. Walker. Mrs. Reed. You wired a federal marshal 6 days ago. Yes, ma'am. 6 days ago you had not met us. No, ma'am. Then who did you wire him about? Caleb looked at the burning field. The line of fire was further off now. The wind had begun to drop. The night was full of the smell of burning corn and the smaller, cleaner smell of wet ash. Mrs. Reed. Yes. I told you yesterday I rode into this country with no place to be. Yes. I lied a little. How much? Enough. She did not ask the next question. She just kept looking at him. He took his hat off the hat he no longer had, and remembered he no longer had it, and put his hand against his head instead. There was a man in the last town, a drunk. He told me his sister-in-law's family had been driven off a piece of land in this county by a circuit judge. He told me the judge was buying up the valley, a farm at a time. He told me the judge owned half the mine and all the railroad survey and most of the sheriff. He told me he had a niece who was 9 and could not stop coughing. And so you came. And so I came. Mr. Walker. Ma'am. You came here looking for us. I came here looking for somebody. You were the somebody who found me first. Abigail Reed put her face down against her daughter's hair and shut her eyes. She did not cry. She did not laugh. She just breathed for a while. Lily, very small, said, "Caleb." "Yes, girl." "My jar is still cold in the middle." "Is it now?" "The fire didn't get the inside." "No, it didn't." "Daddy was right." "What was your daddy right about, Lily?" She held the jar up between her 2 small black hands. "He said the truth was the only thing that wouldn't burn." Caleb Walker, Deputy United States Marshal of the Western District of Arkansas, retired on paper and not in his blood drifter for a year, and now no longer stood barefoot of his hat with his sleeves smoking and his hands black to the wrist, and looked at the child holding a sealed glass jar of poisoned creek water like a chalice in the firelight. And he did not say anything for a long while. When he did speak, he spoke to the field. "All right, Whitmore," he said, 10 o'clock. Behind him, the fire pushed west and burned the last of John Reed's summer corn, and the wind began at last to fall, and somewhere far down the road, the hoofbeats of a federal marshal's horse came up out of the dark. The federal marshal came up the road at the first gray of morning. He rode a tall bay gelding and led a second horse on a line. He pulled up at the south fence and swung down without a word. He was a big man, 6'2", broad in the shoulders, a salt and pepper mustache, a star on his chest the size of a saucer. He walked to the fence and looked over it at Caleb sitting in the dirt. "Walker. Sutter. You look like hell. I've been in some." Marshal Tom Sutter put one boot up on the bottom rail of the fence. "Where's the woman?" "Asleep against the post over there. The child, too. They been up all night." "That the box." "That's the box. Open it." Caleb opened it. Tom Sutter knelt and went through the box without touching the jars. He looked at the dates. He read the assayer's letter twice. He read the ledger entries through the first 6 pages. He did not say anything for a long time. When he stood up, his face had gone the color of old iron. "Caleb?" "Yeah." "This is enough." "Enough for what?" "Enough to file federal charges by sundown." "Then file them by sundown." "I aim to." Sutter looked at the burning field. The fire had run itself out 2 hours back. The whole of the North 40 was black stubble and smoke. "Custody hearings at 10. 10. Then we ride at 8. "Yes, sir." Tom Sutter looked at him a long second. "Yes, sir. You ain't called me sir since 74. You weren't a federal marshal in 74. I weren't anything in 74, but a kid scared of his own gun. Get the woman up, deputy. I want her clean and her boots on by 7. The child rides with you." "Yes, sir." The courthouse in Hartstone was a 2-story limestone building with a clock tower that did not tell the right time. By 9:45, the steps were full of people. Caleb did not know any of them. Abigail knew all of them. "Walker." "Mrs. Reed. The woman in the blue bonnet is the wife of the man who owns the feed store. The one beside her is the schoolteacher. The man with the cane is Reverend Wade. The 3 women at the bottom of the steps are Whitmore's wife and her 2 sisters. How many of them are friends?" "None of them, Mr. Walker. None. Their husbands hold notes from the Whitmore Bank. Their sons work at the Whitmore mine. The Reverend's church was built with Whitmore money. There are no friends here, Mr. Walker. There are only people who are afraid." "Then let them be afraid of something else for an hour." Tom Sutter rode up alongside them on the bay. He was wearing his star where every man on the courthouse steps could see it. "Mrs. Reed." "Marshal." "You ready to go in there?" I have not been ready for 9 months, Marshal, but I will go in there. Then walk on my right. Mr. Walker walks on your left. The girl between you. Eyes ahead. Do not speak to anyone on the steps. They walked. The crowd parted. Not warmly, slow. 2 women crossed themselves. 1 man spat in the dirt. A boy of about 12 called out something Caleb did not catch, and the boy's mother slapped him hard on the back of the head and pulled him into the building behind her. At the doors, a bailiff in a faded gray coat held up a hand. Court ain't in session for another 5 minutes. Then I will sit in the back 5 minutes, friend, said Marshal Sutter. The bailiff looked at the star. The bailiff looked at the marshal's gun belt. The bailiff opened the door. Whitmore was on the bench already. He had on a black robe over his black suit, and his spectacles sat low on his nose, and he was making a show of writing something in a leather book when they walked in. He did not look up. The courtroom was full. Standing room only along the back wall. Hatch was at the side door with his Winchester. Doc Hatcher was in the front row in a brown suit too small for him, sweating through it already. 3 families, Caleb did not know, were lined along the third bench, men, women, children, all of them with the same dry look in the eyes, the same slow tremor in the smaller hands. Lily had begun quietly to take note of those hands. She tugged at Caleb's sleeve. Caleb. Yeah. Those children. I see, girl. Their hands shake like mine. I see. Caleb. Yeah. There's a lot of us. He looked at her. Yeah, Lily. There's a lot of you. Whitmore tapped his gavel. Court is now in session in the matter of Reed custody hearing on the petition of the county. Present is the petitioner, the county, by myself presiding. Present is the respondent, Mrs. Abigail Reed of the Township of Hartstone. Mrs. Reed, do you have counsel? Abigail stood. I do not, Your Honor. Have you been advised that the county will provide counsel? I have been advised, Your Honor. The counsel offered was your nephew. A low sound went through the courtroom. A laugh almost. Whitmore's eyes lifted for the first time. Mrs. Reed. Your Honor. This proceeding is informal, but it is a proceeding of law. If you intend to be flippant. I do not intend to be flippant, Your Honor. I intend to tell the truth. Then please be seated and... I am standing, Your Honor. I see that. I intend to keep standing. Mrs. Reed, sit down. No, sir. The courtroom went very still. Whitmore set his pen down. Madam, this court... Your Honor, you called me unfit. You called me hysterical. You called my house disordered. You called my child neglected. You did this in writing, and you sent the writing by the hand of your clerk. Mrs. Reed, you called my house poor, but you made it poor. You called me hysterical because I named the poison, but my husband died writing down the truth you buried. You called my child neglected because her hands shake. But the hands of the children behind me shake just the same, and you have not opened a custody case on a single one of them because their fathers still owe your bank money, and mine does not. The courtroom held its breath. Whitmore did not move for a long second. Then he picked up his pen and very deliberately put it back down. Mrs. Reed, the court will have order. Bailiff. The bailiff stepped forward. Marshal Tom Sutter in the back row stood up. The bailiff stopped. Your Honor, said Sutter. Tom Sutter, United States Marshal, Western District. Whitmore's mouth opened a fraction. Closed. Marshal, this is a county matter. It is a county matter that has become a federal matter, Your Honor. On what grounds? On the grounds of an investigation pertaining to the Whitmore Mining Company and its discharge of unregulated industrial waste into a public waterway, sir. On the grounds of a sealed letter from the territorial assayer in Lincoln, dated July 28th of last year, sir. On the grounds of evidence, I am here to introduce, sir, with the court's permission, and without it, if necessary. Whitmore went the color of paper. Marshal? Your Honor. This is not the time. I will respect the court, sir. I will not interrupt the hearing, but I will be heard before any custody ruling is entered. Are we understood? The 2 men looked at each other across the room. Whitmore looked at Hatch at the side door. Hatch looked at the floor. Whitmore looked back at the marshal. "You are understood, Marshal." "Thank you, Your Honor." Sutter sat. Whitmore picked up his pen again. His hand was not steady. "Mrs. Reed." "Your Honor." "Please continue." "Thank you, Your Honor." Abigail did not look at her notes. She did not have any. "Doc Hatcher is in this courtroom." The doctor did not look up. "Doc Hatcher signed my husband's death certificate. Doc Hatcher signed the medical opinion that my daughter has a nervous tremor. Doc Hatcher signed the affidavit on which this custody case is based." "Mrs. Reed, your husband's medical history is not the subject." "Your Honor, with respect." The same hand wrote all three. "I would like to ask the hand a question." Whitmore hesitated, then nodded once. Doc Hatcher slowly stood. "Doctor?" "Mrs. Reed." "How long have you been the company physician for the Whitmore mine?" "I am not." "How much money does the Whitmore mine pay you each month?" Mrs. Reed, I do not see." $80. "Mrs. Reed." $80 a month, doctor. My husband saw your ledger. He wrote the number down." The doctor's hand went to his collar. "Doctor." "Yes." "Did you in fact examine my husband before signing his certificate of death?" "I examined him." "For how long?" "Long enough." "Doctor, the question is for how long?" 6 minutes. 6 minutes. "Mrs. Reed, the cause of death was self-evident." "Did you take a sample of his blood?" "No." "Did you ask what he had eaten or drunk?" "No." "Did you ask whether he had been drinking from a creek that ran out of the Whitmore mine?" The doctor did not answer. "Doctor." He looked up. His face had gone slack and old. He looked like a man who had been holding the same breath for 9 months. "Mrs. Reed, I am sorry." Whitmore's gavel came down hard. "Doctor, you will compose yourself or you will be removed." "Your Honor, I am sorry." "Hatcher, I lied. I knew it was the water. I told John Reed it was the water in private. I told the judge it was the fever in public. I took the money. I am sorry. I am sorry to this woman. I am sorry to that child. I am sorry to my own God." Doc Hatcher sat down hard. His shoulders shook. He did not look up again. Whitmore was no longer writing. "This court does not recognize an outburst as evidence. The doctor's statement is stricken from the record. The hearing will continue on the original petition." "Your Honor." A voice from the back. An old man's voice. Amos Bell on his feet, hat in his hands. "Mr. Bell." "Your Honor, I have been a blacksmith in Hartstone for 41 years. I knew John Reed. I knew his father. I knew his daughter from the day she was born." "This is not your hearing, Mr. Bell. It is your honor. It is partly mine. Sit down." "No, sir." The courtroom went very still again. An old man in a leather apron, no gun, no badge, no power, standing in the back of a county courtroom and telling a circuit judge, "No." "Mr. Bell, I will have the bailiff." "Your Honor, I saw the pipe." "Mr. Bell, I saw the pipe with my own eyes 3 times. Once in March of last year. Once in June. Once in August, 2 days before John Reed died. I saw the pipe at the back of the mine. I saw it run at night. I saw water come out of it the color of weak tea, and I saw the dirt around it go black, and I saw 3 sick children at the picnic in July, all from farms downstream of that pipe, and I did not say a word, Your Honor. I did not say a word because I was afraid of you. I am saying a word now." Whitmore stared at him. "Mr. Bell, you are accusing a sworn officer of this court of—" "I am saying what I saw, sir." "You are an old man with a poor memory." "I am an old man with shaking hands, Your Honor. I drink the same water. My memory is the only thing that's clear." A woman in the second row began to cry. Not loud. The crying of a woman who had been waiting a long time for permission. Then another woman. Then a man in the third row stood up. "Your Honor." "Sit down." "My boy is 6 years old, Your Honor." I said, "Sit down." "My boy's hands shake." My wife's hands shake. My well sits 300 yards from the creek. My boy is 6 years old. Your Honor and your doctor told me it was inherited, and I have no relative on either side that has ever had. Bailiff. Hatch did not move from the side door. The bailiff in the gray coat did not move from his post. The man in the third row sat down only when his own wife pulled him back by the sleeve. Whitmore's face had broken. The smile that had not faltered at sunrise had faltered now. His hand on the gavel was not steady. This hearing is dismissed. The room rose to its feet. This hearing is dismissed without prejudice. The petition is withdrawn. The matter is referred to. Your Honor. Marshal Sutter was on his feet again. You cannot dismiss this hearing, Your Honor. The petition was brought by the county. The county is yourself. You may not adjudicate a case in which you are the petitioner. You may not adjudicate a case in which you are an accused party to a federal investigation. Step down from the bench, sir. Marshal? Step down, sir. You have no authority in this court. Sutter walked forward. He walked up the center aisle. He had his hand on the brim of his hat as if he were the most polite man in the room. He stopped one step in front of the bench. Silas Whitmore, by the authority of the United States District Court of Nebraska Territory, I am hereby instructing you to vacate the bench in the matter of Reed pending review of your conduct under the Federal Mining Act of 1872 and the Civil Rights Act of 1875. You may step down willingly, or I will instruct my deputy to step you down. What deputy? Caleb Walker stood up. This one, Your Honor. Caleb walked forward. He had not said a word all morning. He had on the same dust-streaked shirt and the same revolver and the same flat, dead quiet in his eyes that Hatch had seen on the road 2 days ago, and Hatch at the side door finally took a step backward. Whitmore looked at Caleb. Whitmore looked at Sutter. Whitmore looked at the room. He took off his spectacles. He cleaned them on the small white cloth. He put them back on. He stepped down from the bench. He did not say a word. He walked down the 3 steps from the bench, walked past Sutter, walked past Caleb, walked through the parted crowd toward the side door. Hatch was no longer at the side door. Hatch was halfway down the side aisle walking the other way. Whitmore stopped. Hatch. Hatch kept walking. Hatch. The Winchester was on the floor near the door. Hatch had set it there on his way past. The crowd watched Whitmore. Whitmore turned. He walked back up the aisle. He walked past his own bench. He walked out the front doors of the courthouse, alone, the way a man walks who has just discovered the door is heavier than he thought. Marshal Sutter looked at Caleb. Walker. Sutter. He is going to ride. He is. You aim to stop him. Caleb watched the doors swing shut. No, sir. No. He will ride to Lincoln, or he will ride to St. Joseph, wherever his money is. He will hire a lawyer. He will fight us in paper for 2 years. He will spend every dollar he owns, and he will not get the mine back, and he will not get this seat back, and he will not get one more night of sleep in this county. He don't need a cell. He needs a long road to think about. And if he runs further, then we ride and bring him back. Sutter turned to the bailiff. This courtroom is closed. The custody petition in the matter of Reed is dismissed with prejudice. The mining operation at the Whitmore mine is suspended by federal order pending investigation effective immediately. Notice will be posted at the gates and at the bank. Are we understood? We are understood, Marshal. Then God help us all. Court is adjourned. He banged the gavel himself. It was the only time the gavel had sounded right all morning. The crowd did not leave. It stood. It stared. It did not know how to walk out of a room that had been one shape for 9 months and a different shape for 9 minutes. Abigail Reed sat down. She sat down on the bench like a woman whose knees had quit her at last. Lily climbed up into her lap. Abigail did not cry. She put her face against the top of her daughter's hair, and she breathed. The Reverend with the cane walked up the aisle and stopped in front of her. Mrs. Reed. Reverend. I owe your husband an apology, ma'am. My husband is in the cemetery, Reverend. Yes, ma'am. You may take it there if you wish. She did not say it cruelly. She said it the way a woman says a thing she has rehearsed in her head 10,000 times, and now no longer cares to soften. The Reverend lowered his head. He turned. He walked out without another word. The woman in the blue bonnet, the wife of the man who owned the feed store, came next. She did not speak. She held out a small cloth bundle. Caleb watched Abigail unwrap it. Inside the bundle were 3 biscuits. Abigail looked at the woman a long second. "For the child," the woman said. "Thank you." The woman went. Then a man came with a fresh-killed chicken. Then a man with a sack of meal. Then a woman with a quart of milk. They did not speak. They did not apologize. They put the things down on the bench beside Abigail Reed and walked away. Lily watched them with her great smoke-smudged eyes. "Mama." "Yes, baby." "Why are they doing this now?" "Because they are afraid in a different direction today, baby." "Oh. It is not the same as loving us." "No, Mama. But it is enough for the week." Caleb walked over. He squatted down so he was eye level with Lily. "Lily." "Yes, sir." "You did well today." "I did not do anything, sir." "You stood next to your mama with your boots laced and your face washed, and you did not run. That's the doing, girl." Caleb. "Yeah." "Is the judge gone?" "He is gone from this room." "Is he gone forever?" Caleb thought about that. "He is gone from being able to hurt your mama, Lily. He is gone from being able to take you. He is gone from being able to put his name above a man's farm and call it justice. That ain't gone forever, but it is gone enough." Caleb. "Yeah." "Are you gonna ride on?" He did not answer that. Abigail looked at him over the top of her daughter's head. "Mr. Walker, the marshal will need a deputy for the federal case." "He will." "For how long?" "Months, maybe a year." "In this county." "In this county." "And after?" "After is a later question, ma'am." She did not press it. She just looked at him a long second. Then she bent her face back down to her daughter's hair. Outside the courthouse, a bell began to ring. Slow. Single strokes. The kind of bell a town rang when a man had died, or when a thing had ended, or when a thing nobody had been able to name out loud was finally ended out loud. Marshal Sutter came up the aisle with the box in his hands. He set it on the bench beside Abigail. "Mrs. Reed? Marshal? You will keep this where it can be found. I will need it again before the grand jury convenes in Lincoln. I expect that to be 6 weeks from today." "Yes, Marshal. You will need to give a deposition. You will need to bring the child for a medical examination by a doctor who is not Hatcher. You will need to swear to the chain of custody on every jar in this box. Are you up to it?" "I am up to it, Marshal." "I thought so." He tipped his hat to her. He tipped his hat to Lily. He looked at Caleb. "Walker." "Sir." "You riding with me back to the forge?" "In a minute." "In a minute." "Yes, sir." Sutter looked at the woman and the child on the bench and at the deputy in the dust-streaked shirt who had not yet put his hat back on, because his hat was a small pile of ash on the south fence of the Reed farm, and he did something Caleb had not seen him do in 15 years. He smiled. "In a minute," he said, and walked out. The courtroom was almost empty now. Only the gifts on the bench. Only the woman and the child. Only Caleb. He sat down beside them. He did not speak. After a long time, Abigail Reed reached out and put her hand over the back of his hand where it rested on the bench between them. She did not take it off. She did not look at him. Lily, half asleep against her mother's shoulder, said very small, "Caleb." "Yeah, girl. You smell like fire." "I know." "I'm glad." "Why's that, Lily?" "Because you came out the other side." He did not answer. The bell kept ringing in the street outside. It rang for a long time. When at last it stopped, Caleb Walker stood up, picked up the tin box, helped a tired widow to her feet, and lifted a half-asleep 10-year-old child into his arms, and walked the 3 of them out of a county courtroom into a Hearthstone morning that was for the first time in 9 months, no longer Silas Whitmore's. The first frost came in late September. The cornfield had been black 6 weeks. Then it had been brown. Then it had begun in a way that no one had quite been able to explain to put up new green. Not corn. The corn was gone. The corn was a year away. Grass. Thick prairie grass. Brought up by the burn, the way prairie grass had always been brought up by the burn since before any man with a plow had ever spoken its name. The grass came up between the burned stalks like a country remembering itself. Lily found the first stand of it. "Mama." "What is it, baby?" "Mama, come look. Caleb, you come look too." Caleb set down the saw. He was building a new section of porch. The back porch this time, the one Abigail had needed since the spring before John Reed died. He wiped his hands on his trouser leg and walked out into the burn. Lily was standing in the middle of what had been the deep corn. The scarecrow's pole was still there. The flour sack head was gone. The hat had blown west in the wind on the night of the fire, and nobody had ever found it. The pole was just a pole, now leaning at a tired angle with a small green crown of grass at its base. "Caleb." "I see." It came back. It did. By itself. It did, girl. She bent down and touched the grass with her open hand. The hand was steadier now than it had been on the day she had run in front of his horse. Not still, steadier. The shake was there, but small. Like a leaf in a soft wind, not a hard one. "Caleb." "Yeah?" "Do you think Daddy can see it?" He thought about that. "Lily Reed." "Yes, sir." "If your daddy can see anything from where he is, he can see this." "Caleb." "Yeah." "What do you think he's saying?" Caleb squatted down beside her. "I think he's saying about time." She laughed. A small laugh. The kind of laugh she had not been able to do in August. He let her finish it before he stood up. Marshal Tom Sutter rode up the road at noon on the second Tuesday in October. He swung down. He looked at the new section of porch. He looked at the new well, the one Caleb had dug 40 yards north of the old one, where Amos Bell had said the spring ran clean under the limestone. He looked at the 4 men working on the barn with Caleb. He looked at Lily and Abigail on the porch with a basin of beans between them. He took his hat off. "Mrs. Reed?" "Marshal, I bring news." "You may bring it inside, Marshal." He sat at the kitchen table. Caleb sat across from him. Abigail set down a cup of coffee. Real coffee, not the boiled twice stuff she had served him at sunrise on the morning of the fire, and stood with her hand on the back of Lily's chair. The grand jury came in yesterday in Lincoln. And indictment on 6 counts: conspiracy to defraud, conspiracy to obstruct a federal officer, conspiracy to procure the death of John Reed, discharge of unregulated industrial waste, aggravated assault by means of arson, and Mrs. Reed, Marshal. Murder in the 2nd degree, ma'am, for your husband. Abigail did not move. They will try him in St. Joseph, ma'am, where he is currently held in the county jail awaiting transport. He has retained 3 lawyers. He will fight every count, but the case will be tried, and he will not be on the bench when it is tried. Marshal Sutter. Yes. Will I have to testify? Yes, ma'am. And Lily. Sutter looked at the child. Lily looked back at him. She had her boots laced and her hands folded in her lap. The prosecutor will not call the child if it can be helped. The doctor's testimony will carry most of the medical weight, but if the defense names the child as a hostile party in any pleading, I will recommend her examination be by sworn deposition in this house, not in a courtroom. Then I will testify, Marshal. I had no doubt, ma'am. Sutter set down his coffee. There is one more thing. Yes, the mine is closed for good. The federal court ordered it sealed last Thursday. The pipe at the back was dug up by federal engineers and weighed and tagged. The company itself is in receivership. Whitmore's stake will be sold to satisfy fines. His wife has moved to her sister's place in St. Joseph. The house in town is shuttered. Abigail looked at her hands. And the other families. 2 state doctors are out of Lincoln. They have been at the Holloway place since Monday. They have been at the Cottrell place since Tuesday. The 3 children at the Donovan farm are already on a treatment regimen for what the state doctors are calling chronic mercury exposure. The state has agreed to pay for it, Mrs. Reed, from a fund that came out of the company's frozen accounts. Then John was right. Your husband was right, Mrs. Reed. He was right from April 14th of last year, and he was right when he was alone. Abigail did not cry. She did not laugh. She put her hand flat on the kitchen table the way she had put it flat on the ledger, like a woman touching her husband's chest. Thank you, Marshal. Don't thank me, ma'am. Thank the deputy across from you. I would have ridden in 2 weeks late and ridden back out empty if he hadn't sent that wire. I have thanked the deputy marshal. He knows. Sutter did not look at Caleb. He looked at Lily. Lily Reed. Yes, sir. You all right, girl? Yes, sir. Hands? She held them out, steadier than they had been in months. Better than mine, Sutter said, and Lily laughed. The neighbors came on Thursdays. That was not a thing anyone had announced. It had just become so. The first Thursday in September, the man from the 3rd row of the courtroom, his name was Cottrell. His boy's name was Tom, had come with a wagon of cut lumber and a son and a hammer. He had not asked permission. He had stood at the gate with his hat in his hands and said, Mrs. Reed, I owe you a barn. Abigail had stood on the porch and considered him a long time. Mr. Cottrell. Ma'am. You did not burn my barn. No, ma'am. You stood up in the courtroom. Yes, ma'am. That was your debt, Mr. Cottrell. It is paid. Ma'am. Yes. I am here to pay another debt, the one I owe my own boy. I would like to tell him when he is grown that I helped build a barn for the woman who told the truth about his hands. I cannot do that if you do not let me build. Abigail had looked at him a long second. Get the wood off the wagon, Mr. Cottrell. By the 3rd Thursday in September, 6 men were coming. By the 2nd Thursday in October, 10. They brought wood. They brought nails. They brought hot dishes their wives had cooked. They did not stay for supper. They did not sit at the table. They worked and they tipped their hats and they rode away. It was not friendship. It was not yet forgiveness. But it was the right thing being done by men who had stood by while the wrong thing was done. And Abigail Reed sat on her porch each Thursday with a basket of cold biscuits and watched her barn go up and did not pretend it was anything more than what it was. It was enough. Amos Bell came on Sundays. He brought a small iron hook one Sunday, a new latch the next, a brace the next, a hand-forged set of hinges the next. He never charged. He left the work in the barn and tipped his hat to Abigail and rode away on the borrowed horse, which by November was no longer borrowed, but his own. On the 3rd Sunday in October, he stayed. Mrs. Reed. Mr. Bell. I have something for the child. He took a flat package wrapped in brown paper from under his arm. He set it on the porch step. Lily unwrapped it. It was a small iron horseshoe, the size to fit a child's palm, hammered smooth and stamped with the letters L.R. on one side. Mr. Bell. Lily Reed. What's it for? It's for keeping girl. You keep that in your pocket. When your hands shake, you press your thumb on it. Iron remembers being still. It will help. Lily looked at the horseshoe in her hand. She closed her fingers around it. She pressed her thumb against the stamped letters. Her hand stilled. It was not the horseshoe. It was perhaps that an old blacksmith, with a shake of his own, had given a small thing of his own work to a child who had stood in a burning cornfield with one of his neighbor's truth in her hands. It was that a man who had been afraid for 41 years had decided to put a piece of iron between a child and her own trembling. It worked. Lily looked up at him. Mr. Bell. Yes. You ain't shaken either today. No, girl, not today. He stayed for supper. Caleb still slept in the barn. He had said 3 days at the start. 3 days had been 6 weeks before he finished the well. 6 weeks had been 4 months by the time the barn had a roof on it. The barn had a roof on it on the 2nd Friday in November. and Caleb still slept in the barn. He slept in the barn because he had not been asked to sleep anywhere else, and because Caleb Walker did not invite himself into rooms. On the second Saturday in November after supper, Abigail Reed stood at the kitchen window and watched the lamp go on in the barn and stood with her hand on the curtain a long time. Lily looked up from her slate. "Mama." "Yes, baby." "It's cold in the barn." "It is." "Mama." "Yes." "Why's Caleb sleep in the barn?" "Because he's a polite man, baby." "Oh." "Lily." "Yes, Mama." "Do you want him to sleep in the house?" Lily considered it the way a 10-year-old considered things, with her whole face working at once and her tongue on her bottom lip. "Mama, I want him to sleep wherever you want him to sleep." "That ain't an answer, baby." "I know." "Lily Reed." "Yes, Mama." "You answer me plain." Lily set down the slate. "Mama, he's my Caleb. He's been my Caleb since the road. I want him in the house with us where I can hear him snore. I want him at this table at breakfast. I want him to be my Caleb and your Caleb and not the barn's Caleb. Is that plain enough, Mama?" Abigail looked at her daughter a long second. "That is plain enough, Lily." She took her shawl off the peg. She walked out the back door. She walked across the yard. She crossed in front of the new well and around the corner of the new barn and to the open barn door. Caleb was at the workbench oiling the revolver. He looked up. "Mrs. Reed." "Mr. Walker." "Anything wrong?" "No." "Lily." Asleep at the table over her slate. She did not speak for a long second. She looked at the lamp on the workbench. She looked at the bedroll on the hay. She looked at the man on the stool. "Mr. Walker." "Ma'am." "There is a room in the cabin that was John's office." "Yes, ma'am." "It has a bed in it. The bed has not been slept in for 9 months." "Ma'am." "It has a stove next to it. The stove draws well. It is warmer than the barn. It is also closer to the kitchen, which means closer to coffee in the morning." "Mr. Walker, I am not asking you to share my bed. I will ask you that perhaps, or I will not. And the asking is a thing for a later month. I am asking you to sleep where my daughter can hear you snore." Caleb set the revolver down. "Mrs. Reed." "Mr. Walker." "You sure?" "I am sure, Mr. Walker." He stood up. "Then I will get my bedroll." "You will get your bedroll, Mr. Walker." "Yes, ma'am." "And Mr. Walker." "Ma'am." "My name is Abigail. I have said this to you in fire and in court and in the kitchen at midnight. I would like you to begin saying it back." He looked at her a long second. "Abigail." "Caleb?" "Yes." "Get your bedroll." He got his bedroll. The first new shoots came in the spring, not in March. March was too early. April put down a long cold rain, and the burn ground that had been black in October and brown in November and white under snow in January went in the second week of April, the deep wet color of coffee grounds. By the second week of May, the rows Caleb had turned with the new plow team, the team Cottrell had loaned and then quietly sold him for $1, showed the first thin green of summer corn. By the end of June, the corn was knee-high. By the end of July, it was waist-high. By the first Saturday in August, it was over Lily Reed's head. It was a year almost to the day since she had run barefoot into a stranger's horse on a dirt road in the same field. She walked it now with her boots laced and her hair braided, and one iron horseshoe in her pocket. She walked between 2 rows that had been planted by her Caleb and tended by her mama, and watered from a well that ran clean and cold. She stopped in the middle of the field. She turned in a slow circle. She breathed. "Caleb?" He was 20 paces behind her, hands in his pockets, hat low. "Yeah, girl." "Come stand here." He walked up. He stopped beside her. He put his hat back on the way he had not been able to do the morning of the courthouse a year ago because he had a hat now. He had bought it in Lincoln in November at the grand jury with money he had earned as a federal deputy. It was a good hat. He took it off again because Lily had her face up to the sky. "Caleb." "Yeah?" "Look at the corn." "I am looking. It's taller than me." "It is, Lily. It's a foot taller than me." 2 feet maybe. It's bigger than the corn that burned. It is. How come? Because the burn fed it. Old prairie trick. Fire eats what's old, and what's old becomes what feeds what's new. Your daddy would have told it better. I'm telling it plain. Caleb? Yeah. She did not look at him. Caleb, I want to ask you a thing. Ask it, girl. It is a thing I have been wanting to ask since the courthouse. Then ask it. She turned. She looked up at him. Her hands were folded in front of her apron, the way she had folded them in front of Whitmore on the bench. Her boots were planted in the dirt the way her mother had planted hers on the porch. She was 10 years old and 1 month, and she was a child who had carried a sealed glass jar through a burning cornfield, and she had run out of small words. Caleb. Lily. Can I call you Pa? He did not answer right away. He did not answer for a long time. He took his hat off. He held it in both hands. He looked at the brim. He looked at the dirt. He looked at the row of corn behind her, where a meadowlark was singing the same 2 notes it had sung at noon a year ago, on a different day in the same field. Then he went down on one knee in the dirt. He set the hat down beside him. He took both of Lily Reed's small hands in both of his own. His hands were steady. Her hands were almost steady. The almost was a thing they had both worked for every day since August. Lily. Yes, Pa. She had said it before he had said yes. She had said it because she had already known. He laughed that short, hard, surprised laugh that had come up out of him in the dirt by the south fence, and his eyes filled up, but did not spill, and he held her hands a little tighter. Lily Reed. Yes. I thought I rode into this field to save you. Yes. Turns out you was the one who found me. I know, Pa. You knew that. I knew it on the road. You did not. I did, Pa. I grabbed the stirrup. He laughed again. He let go of one of her hands and rubbed the back of his other hand across his eyes quick, like a man brushing off a horsefly, and put his hat back on. He stood up. He held out his hand to her. She took it. Abigail Reed was standing 20 feet down the row where she had been standing for the last 5 minutes without speaking. She had a basket over her arm. She had her sleeves rolled to the elbow. She had her hair down. She was 35 years old, and she was no longer dying, and she was looking at the man in her cornfield, and the child holding his hand, and her face was the face of a woman who had decided in the long quiet of one Nebraska winter that she was no longer alone. She walked up. Caleb? Abigail. Lily. Mama. Is supper at sundown then? Supper is at sundown, Mama. And after supper. After supper we walk the rows, Mama. All 3 of us. All 3 of us. Yes. Abigail Reed put her hand against the side of Caleb Walker's face. Just for 1 second. Just long enough that the meadowlark above them had time to sing the second of its 2 notes. Then she dropped her hand. Then she took her daughter's other hand. Then the 3 of them turned together between 2 rows of green corn that had been black a year before, and they walked. They walked slow. They walked, the way Abigail's husband had taught her a long time ago, was the right way to walk through tall corn, not fast and not noisy, but slow and listening. They walked toward the cabin. Caleb Walker, Deputy United States Marshal, former drifter, no longer alone, walked into the yard of the Reed farm at sundown, with a widow on one side of him and a child on the other, and he did not look back at the field, and he did not look back at the road, and he did not look back at the long year of his life that had brought him to the kitchen door of a woman whose name he now said as plain as his own. He looked at the door. He opened it. He let the woman and the child go in first. Then he stepped over the threshold of a house that was at last his. The door of the Reed farm shut behind them on a country evening, on a green summer, on the 2nd August of the rest of their lives. The cornfield outside grew quiet. The wind dropped. The meadowlark sang one last time. The road past the gate was empty, and would stay empty because Caleb Walker was not on it anymore. He was home.